Welcome to Screen Recaps, and today we are going to be recapping the movie A.R.O.G. In Istanbul, Arif and Çek are a hardworking couple who run a carpet shop. One day, Logar, an old friend of Arif's, arrives at the business with his assistant and announces that he has discovered something unusual at a nearby location. As they approach the spot, Logar captures Arif and ties him up. It turns out his entire goal was to take Arif's spouse, also the object he was referring to as a time machine. Using an advanced technique, the villainous Logar transforms into an Arif look-alike and declares his intention to start a family with Çaku. As the real Arif tries to confront Logar, his helper activates the time device and transports him 1 million years into the past. Arif lands in the Cretaceous era when dinosaurs are still thriving just 2 seconds later. As he explores in terror, he encounters apes who are the first of their kind and have not yet evolved. Arif is compelled to live among them and attempts to educate them in the hope that they would progress. The days turn into months and winter approaches. As Arif tries to relieve himself, his urine instantly freezes, indicating that the temperature is akin to that of the modern North Pole. Arif had no other choice, so he constructs a structure out of the frozen icicles. Even after several months of rigorous teaching, the apes have shown no signs of improvement. This realization dawns on Arif that he cannot return home if he continues to live with these unintelligent primates. Therefore, he embarks alone into the jungle in search of human civilization. On his journey, he encounters a T-Rex that roars at him. Arif is initially frightened, but he soon discovers that the dinosaur is actually a mother protecting her eggs. Arif adopts a friendly approach and withdraws from the dinosaur's territory upon realizing this. The T-Rex appreciates his kindness and offers him a massive honeycomb as a parting gift. Arif gratefully accepts it before realizing that he has now provoked a gigantic bee. The bee stings him and pursues him, forcing him to run for his life. Arif attempts to evade the bee by hiding behind a tree, but he quickly becomes disoriented from the sting and collapses to the ground. When he closes his eyes, he observes 2 primitive men on the tree. Before he could react, however, the ancient people subdue him. Eventually, Arif regains consciousness in a cave surrounded by oddly singing cavemen. It becomes apparent that they fear Arif because he is an outsider and they intend to harm him. Thankfully, Arif can communicate in their language and persuades Dimi, the tribe's leader, that he hails from the future and poses no threat. A man suddenly announces the arrival of the A.R.O.Gians. Dimi's tribe has long been oppressed by the A.R.O.Gians, a different group led by a barbarian named Karga. Every time they arrive, the A.R.O.Gians mistreat the people and plunder their food and supplies. This time, Karga is coming to conduct a ritual with 3 of the most robust cavemen. Regrettably, Arif is one of the contenders. When he declines, Karga shoots him with a sedative, renders him unconscious, and then transports him to his tribe. Tasso, one of the natives, has an accident on the way, hits his head on a stone, and fractures his arm in the process. When he cries out in pain, Karga treats Tasso as if he were deceased. Arif, who is already awake, is surprised and intervenes immediately. He informs the barbarians that Tasso is not deceased, but simply has an injured arm. Afterward, he improvises a cast for the fractured arm. Unexpectedly, Tasso can now feel his arm again, and he expresses gratitude to Arif for saving his life. After they arrive at the hamlet, it is revealed that Kalia, Karga's nephew, and Tasso's father, is truly in charge. Karga questions Tasso about the handcrafted mask he found in Tasso's chamber after the father and son are reunited. Tasso proudly admits that he crafted it from tree bark, which angers Kalia since he wants his son to be a fierce warrior, not an artist. Later, Kalia recounts an incident from his childhood that led to the demise of his father, Kuma. One day, a peculiar circular spacecraft carrying 2 unusual visitors landed from the sky. They presented Kuma with a ball as a gift before returning to their spacecraft. Sadly, when Kuma rushed after them to bid farewell, he was fatally injured by the spaceship's engine. Since then, Kalia has harbored a deep aversion to novelty and innovation. Believing that his father is in the afterlife, he has constructed an exceptionally tall tower. Numerous individuals have attempted to ascend the tower to retrieve Kuma, but none have succeeded or survived. It turns out that Karga assembled the 3 strong men from Demi's tribe to send them up the tower. Nevertheless, Arif offers to make the journey alone, astonishing everyone else. He gradually climbs the tower and eventually reaches the summit. There, he encounters a peculiar individual whom he believes to be Kuma. Arif intends to return the man to Earth, but in a fright, he plummets to his demise. Arif starts his descent gently, and when he reaches the bottom, The Aragon tribe is astonished to see a survivor emerge from the tower. Cowalea is disappointed that Arif couldn't bring back his father, but he forgives him nonetheless. Tasso is equally impressed by Arif's bravery, and he begins to carve a portrait of him on a rock. Arif admires his artistry, and Tasso offers him access to his assortment. There, Arif discovers a hidden portrait of Mimi from the other village. It turns out that Tasso has a significant crush on her. This reminds Arif of his beloved wife, Czech, and he implores Tasso to provide him with any available tools so he can return to his time. Tasso considers it impossible since his father, Kalia, stores all equipment in a cave and forbids anyone from using it. However, when Arif offers to introduce Tasso to Mimi, he decides to help acquire the tools. Tasso and Arif venture into the cave later that night in search of tools. Unfortunately, they are quickly apprehended by Karga, who transports them to Cowalea. As expected, the village leader is dismayed that his son has become a thief and disowns him immediately. Consequently, a frustrated Tasso departs the area with Arif. In the subsequent scene, the two explore the forest until they spot Mimi and her companion swimming in a river. Mimi is unfriendly towards Tasso due to his history, but Arif changes her mind by revealing a beautiful lady tattooed on Tasso's back. The group then returns to Demi's hamlet, where Arif explains his intention to establish a new society. He informs Demi that Kalia's cave has hundreds of valuable devices and requests Demi's assistance in acquiring them. Dimitri and his people are thrilled at the idea of obtaining modern tools and technology, so they immediately agree to the proposal. The next night, Arif and Tasso penetrate Collier's cave once again and load the necessary equipment onto a cartwheel. The villagers then help them transport the cartwheel back to the hamlet. In no time, Arif begins creating all the necessary innovations that have contributed to the advancement of humanity. After a few months, everyone in the community becomes accustomed to their new advantages. They have progressed several thousand years faster thanks to Arif, which has made their lives much simpler. Women can now cook meals, and children can attend school. Arif is appointed minister of the village, but he is unhappy because he has seen no improvement in the intelligence of his people. On the other hand, Kalia finally discovers that Arif and Tasso have looted the cave. As he sends his uncle, Karga, to deal with them, he is taken aback by all the new innovations in the community. He demands their swift return. Arif taunts and humiliates him in front of his followers. This infuriates Karga, who vows to return with his army to exact revenge. One day, Arif invites Tasso, Mimi, and others to a nearby jungle for a picnic. When they return, they find that the entire town has been ransacked. It turns out that the A.R.O.G plundered the entire community. Arif approaches Cowalea and suggests a solution, a six-man football game, as he is fed up with these feuds. If his side prevails, Cowalea will be obligated to return the pilfered equipment, and in the event of Arif's team's defeat, Cowalea will obtain a tower long enough to locate his missing father. Predictably, Cowalea readily agrees. Subsequently, it is disclosed that the A.R.O.Gians have been participating in ball games to honor Kuma's late father, whose special ball has become a sort of treasure. Therefore, Cowalea encounters no difficulty in assembling a team. He picks 6 of the most fierce, physically fit, and robust individuals for the competition. But Arif also starts scouting for players. Unfortunately, no one has ever heard of the term football. Mimi then mentions that G.O.R.A, a former A.R.O.G goalkeeper, resides in the vicinity. G.O.R.A apparently withdrew from football after conceding 8 goals in a single game. Arif tries to persuade him to join, but he declines. Seeing this, Dini volunteers to be the team's goalkeeper. Arif and Tasso become the front strikers, while the rest of the squad comprises random villagers. Arif and his team commence rigorous training at this point, while Mimi and other women craft the football uniforms. After a few days, RFFC masters the game and starts playing with grace. The crucial day is approaching rapidly. Everyone is eagerly anticipating the match, but regrettably, the Arrogans begin dominating right from the start. They outmatch their opponents physically and score 4 remarkable goals. Unexpectedly, just before halftime, a player from RFFC manages to score a goal. He celebrates with such enthusiasm that he accidentally runs into the nearby fire. During the halftime talk, an anxious RF reveals that he is actually an extraterrestrial from another planet who has been residing on Earth because of its delectable cuisine. In reality, he possesses extraordinary abilities that could swiftly turn the game in their favor. Arif also confesses that he had refrained from using his abilities out of fear of harming someone. However, now that his team's victory is on the line, he must unleash his extraterrestrial powers. Strangely, instead of concealing such important information, the villagers become excited and rally behind him to deliver his best performance. As soon as the second half begins, Arif's abilities enable him to completely dominate the game. He levels the score at 4-4 by guiding his team to 3 goals with his otherworldly acrobatics and exceptional vision.
Paso gets into a confrontation with one of the A.R.O.Gens during the intensity of the game, resulting in a penalty for them. Demi blocks the penalty but injures his hands, rendering him unable to play. Now, as there is no goalkeeper on the roster, G.O.R.A volunteers to play. He rapidly becomes an impenetrable wall, stopping everything thrown at him. Finally, with a few seconds left, Arif leaps into the air and releases a fierce shot that proves to be the game-winning goal. The community erupts in applause, and Kahalia applauds the opposing team as well. He affirms his commitment to the agreement and vows to avoid the villagers in the future. Despite his victory, Arif feels despondent. He suspects that Logar has already abducted his wife, Chaku. Thus, he intends to depart from the hamlet and roam indefinitely. Before leaving, he entrusts Toso with his watch and Mimi with his engagement ring. Suddenly, there is a blinding flash, and Czech materializes out of thin air. Arif is both overjoyed and bewildered to reunite with his wife. Czech then explains that when Arif left with Logar, she conducted research online and came across a million-year-old ring and watch discovered by archaeologists in a cave.
Czech determined, after further investigation, that the ring and watch belonged to Arif. She then connected the dots and realized that the man before her was an imposter sent by Logar. Consequently, she held him at gunpoint and interrogated him about her husband's whereabouts. Eventually, she used Logar's time machine to arrive at this moment. The couple bids farewell to the locals and returns to their own time frame. Upon their return, they exile Logar to the primitive settlement. Initially, the villagers mistake him for Arif and attempt to engage with him amicably. However, when the arrogant Logar starts using profanities, they discern his true identity. To make matters worse, Kawalia and the others discover that it was Logar's starship that attacked and killed Kuma many years ago. The film concludes as the villagers approach Logar to apprehend him, but a tire wreck suddenly appears out of nowhere.